Bravo is the latest release of Quantel's Paintbox graphics system, providing a wealth of new creative possibilities. This tape is intended to provide designers experienced in the use of Paintbox Express with an overview of the new features in the software release. More detailed information can be found in the Paintbox manual, which accompanies this tape. The tape is divided into 3 subjects: painting and graphics, effects, and the library. I'll begin by looking at painting. There are a number of new features within the painting menu as well as a few changes. Firstly, you will notice that Palette now has 2 colour selection boxes. The largest box contains the painting colour and the other colour is used for graduated rectangles. It is also used for the new paint mix function, which I will explain later. There are more variables available in painting than ever before. In order to get Paintbox Bravo to paint in the same way as Paintbox Express, select Original Paint, which will highlight density, therefore allowing you to paint with a pressure-sensitive brush. The special brush functions, Smooth, Blur, Crisp and Field, can now be found under Filter as a submenu. I will now begin by looking at some of the new brush controls, starting with density, which is now what is known as a varying number box. These now appear for a number of functions within Paintbox. Standard painting has density on, with values from 0 to 100%, so that as you apply more pen pressure, the stroke becomes more solid, just as in Classic or Express Paintbox. With density turned off, paint is deposited with a fixed density, regardless of pen pressure. This can be selected as any value desired. This also works when drawing stencils. This same principle now applies to brush size. When size is turned off, the brush size is fixed. With size on, the size becomes variable depending on pen pressure. Note that the size minimum value is given as a percentage of the maximum, rather than an absolute value. This allows the whole effect to be scaled if you are changing brush size. To give an example of how this might be used, I will take this picture of a gymnast. It's a rough picture, but I'm going to use it to create a stylized drawing. So I'm going to draw the outline using a variable brush size in stencil. So the lighter I press, the thinner lines I get achieve in the stencil, and the heavier I press, the thicker lines of stencil I get. So I'm just going to trace around the gymnast here. So very quickly you can build up a rotoscoped image. Also, of course, I can scale up my brushes using the same percentages here. So I'm going to use a thicker brush here for the ribbon, and the lighter I press, the finer lines I get. To emphasize this drawing, I'll just wipe the picture to black here, reverse the stencil, and then just show you this stylized drawing by wiping through white. 2 other functions available for the brush controls are Random and Modulate. When in size, Random changes the brush width randomly, and Modulate changes the brush width with a regular pattern. And Period determines the frequency of the modulation. One of the ways in which this might be applied is creating borders. So firstly, I'm going to load down a picture and go into graphics and show how this could create many possibilities. This gives you an idea of how the possibilities grow when you begin to combine some of the features within Paintbox. The next function I will cover is Mix. I will use a custom brush to show this function. Custom brushes are covered later in the tape. Mix allows you to draw lines which mix between 2 colours selected in the paint pots, dependent on pressure. Other ways of controlling this function are Map, which will pick colours from the palette depending on pressure. Random will pick colours from the palette randomly. And Cycle will cycle through the colours of the palette However, the larger the number entered, a different look can be achieved as it will cycle through the palette in a slower way. The spray brush scatters brush stamps randomly over a circular area. The area value determines the radius of the splatter area. The higher the value, the larger the radius of the splatter area will be. This is another number varying box, so if the area box is switched on, the area will vary with pen pressure. The lighter I press down, the smaller the area. The harder I press down, the larger the area. If I select a custom brush of a star, this allows me, using the spray facility, to create a star field in a matter of seconds. To give a better example, I will use this picture by Michelangelo. I'm going to select a custom star brush and I'm going to spray them on in Draw Stencil with a variable size brush. So the lighter I press, the less stars I get, and the harder I get larger stars here. I'm going to reverse my stencil here and take it into the colour corrector in order that I can colour correct through the stencil and also choose the colour that I wish my stars to be. And there you can see you can get the type of effect that you want using all the possibilities there. The pickup function gives us the ability to take a photograph and create a painting like this. If I take the original image, I can begin to paint onto the image using pickup. This will pick up the colour of the pixel where I first press down and paint with that colour until I lift the pen and select another one, therefore enabling you to drag original colours from the image over the image, creating a nice paint effect. The Vary option will pick up continually new colours from the image without me lifting my pen. So if I paint continually along the bottom of the image, you can see that different colours are being placed down all the time as I drag my pen across. So if you want more control over the pickup option, just switch off Vary, and this way you can control the exact colours that you wish to pick up and build up an image and create a lovely paint image from an original photograph. Having shown how the new paint features can be used with the brushes, I will show you how I can make my own custom brushes. Firstly, I will design a brush shape in stencil. So I'm going to draw a leaf, then I'm going to reverse the stencil, go to Custom, Edit, New, and then Cut Out. I define the centre of the brush and then extend the crosswise to cover the brush area, and then press down. The blue box here will indicate that I have a new brush. This should now be saved in the library. and the new title will be displayed in the blue box. The area above the menu is the edit facility for the newly created brush, where you can choose to change the radius to match the reference paintbrush above, so that when you change your brush size in custom, it will change in relation to your paintbrushes and your airbrushes and your chalk brushes. You also have the ability to change your spacing of the brush and also the density of your brush. All these are scrollable either on the screen or of course using the numeric keypad. You also have the ability to change the angle of your created brush here. By pressing on the blue box here, I can choose from a variety of brushes that I will have loaded from my library. So to demonstrate angle, I'm going to choose a calligraphy brush. I can change the angle here by either entering a numeric value, or I can do it by scrolling on the edit facility like so. Selecting random, I can vary the angle either side of the 12 that I have loaded in angle here. So if I load 5 into random, it will vary either side of that main figure loaded into angle. Modulate will vary the brush angle in a regular manner. Twist will rotate the brush angle by the twist amount for every stamp. So if I swipe off and draw with twist, you will see that it's twisting the whole time that I'm painting in a continual line. Selecting time dependent determines that the brush stamps are continual rather than dependent on the speed that I paint. If time dependent is selected, the period will determine how often the stamps are made, and the stamp determines the density. In addition to cutouts, new brushes can be defined using a profile graph. This allows me to graphically set the brush profile. Points can be inserted along the graph line, and then the graph can be pulled to the required shape. And in the edit facility, you can see the type and shape of brush that you are creating. The top of the graph is 100% density and the bottom of the graph being 0. So this zigzag profile will result in a series of concentric rings. Points in the graph can be deleted by selecting Delete and tapping on the required point. As you can see, I now have a number of brushes in the custom brush buffer. If I wish to remove any brushes from the buffer, I can choose a brush and select Lose. Providing I have already saved the brush in the library, I can go and get it again later. Remember, selecting Original Paint will reset all variables to normal in the painting facility in the Paintbox. There are two changes for curves within the graphics menu of the Paintbox. Firstly, I shall draw a curve. The two changes are the ability to size and position the curves. To position the curve, simply press down anywhere but on the curve itself, and you can move around the curve anywhere on the screen. To size the curve, select the size box and scroll the pen from left to right. Going right will make the curve larger, going left, make it smaller. There are also changes in the effects menu in Blur. If I load this picture now of a little girl here, I can load in, as per normal, the amount of blur and get a preview square of what it's going to look like. but now I also have the added ability to have directional blur. So if I switch on directional and then load in a direction, I'm going to give it a maximum blur value, you will see you get a preview box of the directional blur. Just going to process that. You can see you've got the directional blur here going in this direction. If I switch on streak, it will give a more dramatic effect, and if I switch on symmetrical, it will streak the effect either side of the point that I press down on. Filters are another new feature for the Paintbox Bravo. Filters can be loaded from the library and selected using the blue selection box, or you can define your own filters by entering numbers into the matrix. The definition of filter matrices is a very wide-ranging subject, and so for the purpose of this tape I will look at some of the basic principles. For more detail you should refer to the manual. To illustrate the basic principles, I will use a single pixel on a mid-tone of grey. So if I zoom in, you'll see I've got one white single pixel on the grey background. If I enter the numbers in a crisscross pattern, using symmetrical horizontal and symmetrical vertical to help me do this quickly. If I put negative numbers around the cross of positive numbers, it will increase the contrast of the effect, making it stronger. So now if I apply this to the single pixel, you will see it produces a crisscross effect. I can then take this matrix and apply this to a picture, and we will see that it will produce a star filter effect. Bravo Effects is a major new image manipulation feature. Within the menu there are a number of controls which I will explain individually, although the most stunning effects can be seen when they are used in conjunction with each other. A good working practice when starting work in Bravo Effects is to select Original All, to reset all the values. I will start using a basic paintbrush to explain Bravo Effects. Changing the pitch value increases or decreases the spacing between the dots. The X and Y values allow the vertical and horizontal spacing to be controlled independently. Selecting the size box increases or decreases the size of the dots. Highlighting the box which covers both pitch and size allows both pitch and size to be changed together, maintaining the spacing between the dots. Dither provides a means of introducing irregularity into the dot pattern. The higher the number, the more irregular the pattern. The lower the number, the more near to its original state. The offset control can be used to shift the dots in any one of 8 directions. Finally, density allows the density of the dots to be controlled. At the moment, the effect is being displayed over a black background. If I wish to change this, I can enter another colour into the colour box. Or I can choose to see the original picture beneath the effect I'm creating by selecting Pick. For purposes of this demonstration, I will leave Picture off. Selecting the hexagonal function will display the dot pattern in a hexagonal arrangement rather than square. If I overlap the dots for a moment and then select Sort, it will draw the dots in order of their luminance value, starting with the darkest and finishing with the lightest. And finally, Explode can be used to give an explosion effect using the currently selected pitch and size. If I select Fraction and ramp my pen on the screen, you can see that I can choose the size of explosion that I would like. I can also source the explosion by moving the crosswise to where I want the explosion to source from. Taking this one stage further, I will introduce the concept of using a stencil to control any of the variables I've spoken about. For example, if I take this image and select a stencil of a rectangle, and then select Dither and enter a value, the stencil will control the dither between the minimum and the maximum value in the variable number boxes. So where there is full stencil, the dither is at its minimum, and where there is no stencil, the dither is at its maximum. This applies to all of the functions. To finalise, I will now explain how to produce a very impressionist style painting from this original photograph. So first of all, I'll select Original All, and then go into my painting menu and select a custom brush. I'm going to select a custom brush that actually looks like a paintbrush. Go back into Bravo Effects, and then select the size of the brush that I would like. And then maybe dither my image a little bit, and then commit it by pressing Do All. And you can see very quickly I've created an Impressionist style effect from an original photograph. There are two new features in the library menu. The first is Sorted Search. Once I've done an open search in the library, I can select how I want it sorted. From this list, I can select many sort options. In this case, I'll select Title. This will sort the elements in the library alphabetically by their title. Any further searches I do will be listed alphabetically. Another new feature in the library menu is the ability to select items for deleting or copying from more than one page at a time. You can do that by either selecting down, or you can do it by selecting down on the grip joystick to browse the page up and down. If I wish to browse the pictures, I can push the joystick grip to the right and the images will browse, and pushing to the left will return to the titles. Paintbox Bravo offers enormous creative possibilities. As you begin to explore how the various functions interact, you will begin to realise the huge range of results which can be achieved.